In this video, I'm going to go over how to create a rotating piece of 3D text. And this is weirdly more difficult than it sounds. Once you figure it out, it's easy, but the initial concept is difficult and annoying. So the way that we're going to do this is right now I have a piece of text that is rotating around this Campbell soup can, and we're going to recreate this. And so the only asset that I've made inside After Effects is the text, everything, and the solid layer. Everything else came from Photoshop. So I'm just going to delete out all of this other stuff. So let's just delete old boot and my shape layer. And so all I'm left with here is this can that I brought in. So to start out, I'm going to create a new text layer, and let's call this old boot. And I'm going to sample my color from here, and let's make sure that my text is highlighted. And I'm going to position it about where I want it to go, about right here. And what I want to do is then create a mask to rotate this object on a circle. So what I'm going to do before I create a mask is recenter my anchor point. So I'm going to move this here, and I'm going to go to Layer, Transform, and Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. It's going to put it right in the center. Now let's create a mask, and I'm going to come in, Ellipse tool, select my shape, draw a mask, hold down Shift so it stays even, and then I'm going to move this mask, so it's a little bit more so in the center. Let's go to V for my arrow tool. I can select the mask itself, select it on the path, and if I go to Align, center it in the center, not in the center of my composition, but in the center right there. And now let's go to Path Options. So I'm twirling down the text, Path Options, and choosing my mask. So now it's going to be aligned with my mask. And right now it's upside down, but we are going to flip this back up in a minute. The next step is to create a new shape layer. So I'm going to go in and create a shape layer. And let's create a shape layer that is basically the same size as my mask circle. So I'm going to choose something just about like this. V to go to my anchor point tool. See my mask. See, these are about the same. Let's make this a little bit bigger, like so. If we look at these together, cool. And let's center them together. So I'm going to hold down both, align to selection, and I'm just going to center them along the bottom like that. The next step is I'm going to parent my old boot to my circle. What that allows me to do is actually connect the two. So since I can't rotate the mask itself in 3D spaces, since that's what I need to do, I need to be able to rotate my my general object. So what I can do is turn my object to 3D and then rotate it. But before I do that, I've got a couple more steps. The first step is to select my Animate and enable per character 3D. And this is going to allow me to animate my characters in 3 dimensions, and they're going to be on the characters rather than being the entire word. So now what this will allow me to do is I'm going to rotate my ellipse. This is 3D. Go to R, and let's change not the Z rotation, let's change the X rotation. So there you can see this is now attached. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip our old boot text up. So what we're going to do is go to Animate, Rotation on our text, and let's rotate our text up. So we need to rotate it in, here we go, old boot, like so. And we do need to reverse our text. So let's come down and let's go to reverse path. There we go. So now our reverse path is off. And we can do a couple more things. We could select our text again, go to our character, and we could shrink down the amount of space between them. There we go. It gets a little bit better, like so. And now we've got this option for rotating our overall text, not on the Y, on the Z. So here, now we've got this rotating around our shape. Almost. What we need to do is do a couple more positioning items. So I wanted to get that set on that angle so that way we could see our actual piece. So let's shrink down our whole shape layer. So I'm gonna shrink this down a little bit more, and it controls the overall scale of our object. And now let's go back to our rotation. Set this back to 0, and we're gonna hit Z rotation once, and let's do 2-second rotation, and we'll just do 1 full rotation. So we shouldn't see any changes there. But now when we see this rotate through, going around and around, so what we can do then is let's take our piece, let's get it exactly in the center, align, or let's just move it over a little bit. There we go. Cool. And now it's going off a little bit. So you notice that when it comes out a little bit, so let's actually shrink this down a little bit more and tilt it all the way up like that. And we're going to position it down in space. So we need to move it down a little bit and over. And since it almost doesn't matter with this to get it to come off, what we're going to do is create a mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a track mat. So I'm going to create a new blank layer by right-clicking, new, solid, and then I'm going to turn it off. And here on this one, I'm going to create just a simple mask on this layer, and then this old boot text is going to use this track mat. So let's do alpha mat, and actually alpha mat inverted. So now what happens is it uses this top solid layer as a, and I can turn off the shape layer here. It's going to use it as a point for the mask. But notice that it comes back up here. So let's add in another mask on that orange solid layer. So I'm going to come back up. We'll just do a little swoop down. I may have to adjust this a little bit later on. And so we've got that coming around, and then we need to put this out here. And I could just do all this all in one mask, but let's just do it since we're here, like so. So now we'll see this come back across. So we're using this layer as a track mat. If I turn this back on, you'll see that it's basically blocking it out and it's creating a mask using the track mat. And there's a couple areas there that it is still showing through. So like right there. So let's zoom in, pull this down just a tiny bit. And same thing over here. There we go. There we go. So as I said in the beginning, a little more difficult than you might think, but using the combination of the 3D layer, which has the text parented to it, so you can turn it around, animating on the actual shape layer, and turning on the 3D character enable and rotating up, you can get your text to move in 3 dimensions.